Check out this book's table of contents. Specifically, Chapter 11. It tells you who the culprit is before the book even begins. Yeah, that happened.
Argofunk Book Review, Argofunk Book Review.
The premise of the book is that Nancy and her friends are in Charleston, South Carolina for the wedding of Charlotte Goodwin and Parker Hill. The wedding starts off on the wrong foot, as the bride's parents complain about how it's way too expensive, while the groom's parents complain about superstitions that I've never heard of before, like redheads are bad luck and yellow flowers are also bad luck. Later on, we'll learn that if somebody sends you a knife with a threatening message attached, it's definitely bad luck. That's an oddly specific superstition, if you ask me. As the title of this book indicates, the hotel is haunted by a ghost. It appears in the bride's room and scares her. Later that night, it appears in a lot of other rooms, including Nancy's. But how did the ghost enter and leave the room without being caught?
It's a secret passageway.
What?
I've seen you play the Nancy Drew games. There's always a secret passageway.
This is a book. It has different continuity.
So Nancy hasn't played her own video games? How sad.
We meet the various suspects, like Charlotte's sister Piper and her new boyfriend Morgan. Morgan the Bachelor. Bachelor number 2 is Tucker Marshall, the snide groomsman who is jealous because the groom beat him for a job promotion. Bachelorette number 2 is basically the same thing. She's jealous because the bride beat her out for a research grant. A few sabotage incidents occur when Nancy is meeting everyone. There's the ghost and some missing jewelry. When the culprit changes the flower order, the bride is so upset that Nancy vows to solve the mystery. The wedding rehearsal is at Our Lady of the fictional Marian title. Apparently, there's a superstition against brides walking down the aisle during rehearsal. So Nancy is forced to be the bride. They make her wear a veil and carry a bouquet, because it's more embarrassing that way. She's just lucky her boyfriend isn't there to see it. On a side note, Nancy compares the bridal march to her high-speed car chases and running into danger. I would like to remind everyone that in the last book, Nancy defeated the culprit by cowering in fear and waiting for someone else to save her. Continuity! Also, gee, I wish we had cool stuff like high-speed car chases in this series. Sadly, as usual, the Hardy Boys get all the action books in this generation, while Nancy is stuck with tamer stuff like Sabotage. This is the 11th Sabotage book in the series. The non-Sabotage books were the theft and the arson one, maybe? No, that had sabotage elements to it too. Whatever. Anyway, back to this book. The bride gets a knife with a threatening message attached, which, as we know, is bad luck. Also, the culprit steals the wedding rings, which are 200 years old and worth a lot of money. Aha! So that's what the culprit was after. Nancy and friends get serious after the rings are stolen, and they search around until they discover a hidden passageway. The passageway is connected to every room in the hotel, and the ghost costume is inside. There's also a newspaper article about the ghost's first appearance about 100 years ago. Nancy doesn't know what the internet is, so she decides the only way to find out more is to visit the Charleston Historical Society. She breaks into the building, where she is caught by the best man, who just happens to be there on the day of the wedding. Right. The old records prove that the ghost is a big tourist attraction. So, Nancy and the gang reveal the ghost is really Old Man Williams, hoping to drum up publicity for his inn. Old Man Williams promises to stop playing ghost after this, and he says the real culprit is an unknown male guest, bachelor most likely, who saw him in the hidden passageway. 2 of the suspects are exonerated in the following chapters, and Nancy recognizes the smell on the knife as the signature perfume of the bride's sister. Nancy confronts Piper, and she confesses she sabotaged the wedding out of jealousy. But the real culprit is Morgan, her bachelor boyfriend. It turns out he's a professional con man. He was just using Piper to worm his way into the biggest wedding of the year so he could steal the rings. He knocks Piper out and prepares to kidnap Nancy. He gags her, he ties her up, he drags her to the hidden passageway where no one can see them. Nancy escapes, by pretending to fall unconscious so she can, kick him in the groin. Yeah, that happened. He screams in pain, and Nancy is quickly rescued by Bess and George. We finish with the bride and sister making amends, and the wedding being a huge success. The end. Post-book follow-up. Hey, this book's title describes the actual book for a change. That's nice. Although it uses the alternate spelling for Gray, which bugs me because my last name is Gray and nobody can spell my name right. This book appears to be inspired by Nancy Drew, Ghost of Thornton Hall, what with the southern setting, old building haunted by a ghost, fancy costumes, and family squabbles. It also seems inspired by the original Nancy Drew series. The cover is clearly a riff on the 1930s style covers that were released 2 years ago. Nancy's narrative in this book is also in the older style. She's rather verbose and descriptive, and she's discovering hidden passageways, which she hasn't done in this series so far. I'd say it's a good thing Nancy's verbose, except when she meets new characters. The character says something, and Nancy spends 2 paragraphs describing how the character looks in detail before continuing the conversation, and at that point I've completely forgotten what they were talking about. George gets some character development in this book, which is interesting. Mostly we learn about George's soft spot for weddings and love, even though she claims to be completely uninterested in that sort of thing. I kind of like that subplot, and now I'm wondering if we've had any Bess-focused books in this series, because Bess is still a blonde stereotype. Overall, I'd say this is a good book. I liked how it kind of imitates the original Nancy Drew series. The narrative is good, and I really liked how there were 3 mysteries, with the ghost, the sabotage, and the wedding ring theft. On the other hand, the book spoils the culprit's identity on the first page, which is completely unforgivable for a mystery. And the first third of the book is somewhat slow, mostly just wedding chores and meeting all the characters, peppered with generic sabotage that we've seen before. The book definitely picks up after that, though. So second half of the book, fantastic. First half of the book, first page of the book, not so good. I give Nancy Drew Diaries number 13, The Ghost of Grey Fox Inn, an 8 out of 10.